CameraLegend.com.
Hey, what's going on, you guys? It's Sam from CameraLegend.com, back at you today with another titan of a camera legend. Now, before I go on, I would like to say that when I started this Titan series on the blog, I'm sure a lot of people thought, and rightfully so, that I was talking about cameras that had a huge impact on the world of photography, and that's partially correct. But the main prerequisite for this series is that they just have to be big badass cameras. And today I have not only a big badass camera, but a camera that had a titanic effect on the world of photography, and that camera is the Canon EOS-1. Alright, so before we go more in depth into the Canon EOS-1, let's take a quick look at a little bit of EOS history and what led up to the Canon EOS-1. Alright, so let's take a ride on the time machine. The year is 1986. The EOS system has not been officially released yet. Canon comes out with this powerhouse, the Canon T90, the most advanced camera in their FD line of cameras. It was a great camera. It was well received, very advanced for its time. Even today, multi-spot metering was probably the jewel in there, but a lot of other features. And if you look at the camera, it really resembles a lot of the Canon EOS that you see today. Apparently it was designed by an Italian designer, an Italian artist, Luigi Colani. So they actually got somebody to design this thing. So yes, they care. Anyway, it was a powerhouse, but only one problem: the lens mount. That old FD lens mount. I can imagine somewhere the engineers were saying, it's great, but it's not going to be able to do all the things we want it to do. So back to the drawing board. So then the next year, 1987, they came out with this camera, with this beauty, the Canon EOS 650. Nice enough camera, unassuming. I'm sure the competition looked at it and said, what, this little thing? Anyway, I don't think it scared anybody, but Canon had a plan. They quietly built up their lenses, and in the year 1989, they came out with this big daddy, the Canon EOS-1, the professional model EOS. And I am sure the competition was not laughing when this came out, because this thing was a powerhouse and is a powerhouse. So let's take a look at some of the things that make the EOS-1 such a great and legendary camera. Alright, let's take a look at some of the things that makes the Canon EOS-1 such a camera legend. I'm not going to go through all the controls and everything, but I just want to point out some of the key things that made this camera so special back in 1989 and why it had an effect on the world of photography. So here's the front of the camera. On the lens, if you'll note, just for the old school flavor, I have a 50mm f1.8 metal mount that everybody seems to want for nostalgia's sake. Personally, the EF2 is just as good, but people like that metal mount one for some reason. Anyway, let's take a look to the back. Right here you can see the controls here, right here. Autofocus metering. If you press both of them, you get the ISOs. You have multiple exposure if you press this. The mode button is here. The front dial is here. The rear thumb wheel is here. And you have the on and off button. If you look on the side here, it had a feature that was very rare back in those days. It's called the custom functions right here. And with that, you can do things like, I believe there are 8 of them on the EOS-1. You could do things like leave the film leader out, which is what I like. You can also have the camera not automatically rewind, which I believe would be very useful for people in press conferences, things like that. And off the top of my head, the ability to change the shutter and aperture in either a 1-step increment or 1/3 step. But anyway, there are more, as I said. But the thing that makes the EOS-1 super special, you have to transport yourself back to 1989. And in 1989, to have all this, the front dial, the rear wheel, the custom functions, that was all unheard of. Now, I'm not sure if the EOS-1 was the first camera to have all this, but to have them all in one package, I'm pretty sure that the Canon EOS-1 has to be among the first, if not the first, to incorporate all of this stuff together. And, you know, it fulfilled Canon's promise of what electronic cameras can do, because now you can customize your camera, you can do more things, you can change the autofocus to here. But in general, these are things that you see on all serious pro caliber digital SLRs or even mirrorless cameras these days, things that we take for granted. But this was stuff that Canon innovated as far as putting it together in a package all together. I don't know where else I've seen the thumb wheel, only on Canon, when it first started. So anyway, this is why the Canon EOS-1 is a camera legend, and why it has made such a huge impact in the world of photography. When you think about all the cameras, all the serious cameras today, most of them are going to have a lot of this stuff. So that is the Canon EOS-1's legacy that continues to this day. Now, personally for me, I'm not a huge fan of pressing buttons and things like that. You know, I prefer cameras with the shutter speed right here and seeing the aperture. But just like anything else, just like your phone or your iPad or your tablet, you learn it, you get used to it. Once you get used to it, it becomes quite intuitive. So being a Canon user, as well as a Nikon user and other brands, I've gotten used to, learning how to operate the camera, and it's not that hard once you get used to it. All right, let's give you guys a little bit of that sexy shutter sound that everybody loves. I've got the Power Booster E1 on, and this camera is capable of 5.5 frames per second, and I have her on continuous high, so let's give it a shot. Woo! Machine gun, baby. Machine gun. Alright, so if any of you guys are looking for the Canon EOS-1, the prices are trending now between $50 to $150. I wouldn't pay any more than that. The average is about $100, which is actually not a bad price for a very interesting piece of Canon EOS history and a true camera legend. In use, in bright light, in good lighting, the camera still functions very much like a modern day camera with speedy autofocus, speedy and accurate autofocus. Cons: in dim or moderately dim lighting, the camera might hunt a little bit at times. Another con is the autofocus is only one autofocus point, which is a cross-type sensor in the middle of the frame. It does not light up in red like the EOS-1N. For all practical purposes, the EOS-1N and any of the cameras that came after it are actually much better performers, but for some reason this particular camera to me still has a place in my heart because it was the first one that I got, the first pro body that I got in the 90s, and to me it still resonates as the one with the biggest impact. Whenever I use it, I get goosebumps. Anyway, yeah, so the Canon EOS-1 is an amazing camera. It had a huge impact in the world of photography. There's a lot more on the blog. I'm sure I left out something, but just so you know, I'm not trying to push another new review. My review is actually from 2015. So if you go to cameralegend.com, just go to the search bar on the side and look up Canon EOS-1, and you'll see the review there. Anyway, thank you guys so much for staying with me, for looking. If you have one of these cameras, feel free to leave a comment. Please don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos, and I will catch you next time on the next episode of, shall I say it, the CameraLegend.com YouTube channel.
CameraLegend.com